Hello all my JavaScript friends, this is TheVirtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and this is our racing game. With this video, we're going to be taking a look at one last piece of coding on our track before we actually get into the graphics, although we may get a little bit into the graphics here for this video because that's what I promised you in the last video, but hey, that's the way life goes. If you recall correctly, when I went through the unit test, I had not done anything on the track unit test. Well, I have now completely completed that. And in fact, I've got a lot more than just the track unit test. I have unit tests for each one of the individual pieces of track. Now, what do I mean by the pieces of track? If you recall from our presentation, that basically is the different sections that I want to connect together. And that would be, for instance, the curve will be one of them, the ending anchor, the finish line, the starting anchor, the starting line, and finally the straight. And each one of these will represent different graphical images to represent, of course, a straight, a starting line, an anchor, and all that kind of fun stuff. And I have gotten unit tests for each one of them. For instance, here's the one for the curve. This figures out all the different curves we can have. And in our case, we're going to want a 45, 90 degree, 135 degree, 180 degree, 222, 225, 227, so on and so forth. Currently, all I have implemented is the 90 degree and the 180 degree. We'll get to the other ones, as we go along here. I have an ending anchor. This is all the tests for the ending anchor. As you can tell, it's not much of anything. Same thing with the finish line. There's nothing there. Starting line, there's nothing there either. It's got a little bit of extra information. It got a little bit of extra in there because it's one of those anchors that actually has a starting position where everything else doesn't have a starting position. Here's the start line. This is very, very simple. Once I get into the more graphics on it, for instance, to actually do the start line, we will have a real start line. And here's all the unit tests for the straight itself. And there's a lot more here, especially having to deal with the control points, which allows me to do the nice, pretty little Bezier curves. So so basically what I've done here is I've now taken the track one and I have gotten. Basically what I've done here now is I've gotten the track, and the track just deals with controlling the track itself. And one thing I decided upon when I used the track is instead of having a class for each one of the different track pieces, I'm going to have the track object be basically a factory for all of these different tracks. So if I wanted to create a starting anchor, I just wouldn't say new starting anchor. I would say track create start anchor, track create straight. Here's another track create straight, things like that. Track create curve, create ending anchor, create start line, and create finish line. So this allows me to be able to basically each one of these pieces is a track, but it's a different type of track. And within that track, we have a lot of different properties. Let's expand the properties, and this basically allows me to take a look at all the different properties, and there's quite a number of properties on a track. Some of them are pertinent to particular pieces of track, some of them are not, but that's perfectly okay. The big thing within the track is what we call the connect to method. And the connect to method is when I take a piece of track and I say connect to another piece of track. Let's see if I can find a example here. Here's where I'm defining all my different tracks. Yeah, here's a good thing right here. Straight connect to starting anchor. And this basically says I'm going to take a straight and I want to connect it to a starting anchor. Here's the start line. I want to connect it to the starting anchor. And this basically allows me to be able to, with this connect to is very important to be able to do all the funky mathematics and everything it will allow that it needs to be able to connect one piece of track to another. So the whole purpose of this is to start with, for instance, the starting anchor and then connect them one after another. And so I'm checking for all of these. Here's a finish line connecting up. Here's a straight line connecting up. And then I'm also connecting an ending anchor. So I'm checking the starting positions and the ending positions of all of these different pieces to make sure that everything is correct. And so there's a lot going on here, and especially when you have to do with a curve. There is a ton of things to have to do with the curve here because it's curving. So there's a lot to have to take a look at. And let's see, we also have change the starting position, the end position on the curve. So change, yeah, you can tell here there's a great deal of stuff here, both dealing with the 90 And I think they did the 180 up here somewhere. Yeah, there's the 180. And negative and positive curves, it goes one way, it goes the other. And once I do the 45s and the 135s and the 270s and all that, I'm going to have to do the exact same thing for all of those. But because of the complexity of this, right now I'm just doing the 90s and the 100s and 80s. And here's something I decided for some reason I didn't want to do, whatever. Here are all the different common attributes. And this is what I kind of mentioned earlier. Basically, when we create the track, all these different attributes, all these different tracks will put different attributes into the track itself. And some of them are different, basically, depending upon, or some of them are not some of them are different. Some of them are germane to that particular track and some of them not. For instance, I would expect it to always have a radius property. And this, of course, radius property will be null if we have a straight or start line or finish line or something like that. But if we have a curve, then it would be there too. Degrees, depth drop would also, contour would also be things that are associated with curves. Length is associated with a straight curve direction. Guardrail information, track width information. When I examine the defaults, this is the default ID, name, description, type, starting position, ending positions, radius, degrees, depth drop, curve direction, contour, length, starting position. All of these allow me to be able to make sure that I've got the correct tracked information. So I kind of want just to kind of go through that real quick to show you that I have completed the unit test for the track, and it's huge in this case. So this will allow me now to have, if ever I want to add pieces, this will allow me to be able to add any other types of pieces as I see fit. I use the track to be able to generate the piece itself, and then I'll use the properties on that piece to be able to do what I want. Like, for instance, if I created a loop-to-loop or something like that, then that would be another piece called loop-to-loop or whatever in that case. So that's basically the track. And when you put all of this together, or the way to put all of this together, let's close all of our tabs out here. When you put all this together, you end up with something like this. Now, if you are following along inside the repository, this is the Fun With JavaScript public repository, which is all free for you to take a look at. There is a directory here called Sandbox, in which I can start testing everything within the sandbox. When I actually now want to build a track, I can take a look at this sandbox thing here. Here's where I'm doing this is where my starting position is going to be. My starting direction vector, which is at a negative 75y, means it's going to be kind of dipped down. I got a starting anchor, ending anchor, start line, finish line. I've got a straight. Here's my definition for the straight. Basically, what my ID is, what the ending position is. I'm also trying to figure out how to get length correctly. If I don't have control panels, I can use a length, like I've done here in straight number 2. But if I do have control points, excuse me, not panels, but control points, then I'm going to need some sort of ending position. However, literally about 10 minutes before I started this video, I was sitting there thinking, oh, I think I know a way we can do that. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll fix that a little bit later. Because it would really be cool if I gave it just contours, a starting and a length, and be done with it. But we didn't. Here's straight number 3, straight number 4. Here's a 180 degree curve, radius of 20. Degrees of 180. Here's a 90 degree curve. Here's another straight number 5 here. So that should get everything that I need here. Yeah, by start line, finish line, all that. So to put them together, all I do is just give myself an array. And all the program is going to do is going to sit there and say, okay, we're going to start with the starting anchor. And that starting anchor is going to have a start point of starting anchor is going to have a start point. Let's get rid of that. We don't need it. Starting anchor is going to have a starting position and a starting direction vector, which are defined right here. That's going to connect to start line, which is just that. And then start line is going to have straight number 1, which is going to be a big old dip. Let's see, straight number 1. Yeah, basically we're going to have a big old dip here because our ending position is going to be negative 15, while our starting position is 0. Our ending position is going to be negative 15, so we got a pretty big dip there, and we got a nice, pretty little curve inside there. Then we're going to connect up to straight number 2. What does straight number 2 look like? Straight number 2 just has a length of 20, so it's just a straight piece of track. Whatever the direction vector is at the ending of this nice pretty curved track is going to be the same direction vector it's going to have for the straight number 2, and then whoo, it brings it up for 20. Then we're going to have the 90-degree curve, and the 90-degree curve is very simple. We've got a radius of 20, 90 degrees, and curve direction negative, which will send it basically clockwise, because I have negative going clockwise and positive going counterclockwise. I kind of thought that was supposed to be opposite, but that's kind of the way it ended up, so I just left it. After that, we go to straight number 3, which straight number 3 has an ending position of -5. Now, these are actually relative positions from its current position, so I don't have to sit there and compute, okay, I should be down at this point -15, so I need to have a -20 here. No, this is all relative positions from the starting point. So from the starting point, I'm going to go 30x, 5 down, and a 0. So it's going to be a nice little gentle little slope down. And then we got the curve 180, which is the same as the curve 90, except it's got a 180-degree curve and a direction positive, which means it'll go to the left. And straight 5 is going to have basically another -30, which basically brings me back to where I was. Back down 5 more, so we've got another gentle slope before we hit the finish line. Straight number 4, which is just a very simple length of number 5, and then finally the ending anchor. And that's it. That's all it takes. And so what the computer will do now is it will figure out what it needs to do in starting with the starting anchor, go in the start line, straight 1, straight 2, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So you can build some pretty complex tracks just by literally, if you can imagine it being physical, you just take a piece of track and, hook them together. And that's basically what I wanted to be able to do here is I wanted to have an array that just hooks the tracks together, and that's it. So that's really all there is to the tracks. That's what I wanted to concentrate on here because we're starting to get into the game, and I can show you this on this screen. This is the sandbox. This is what I was talking about. Let me zip back real quick to my other screen. This is what I was talking about here in the sandbox within the Fun With JavaScript public repository, which you have complete and full access to. You can take a look at the sandbox and play around with it yourself. And that is let's go back to our screen here. So on the screen, let me flip around here. Ignore all the stuff like select a mesh and all that kind of fun stuff. This is a little debugging thing that I built to help myself debug and try to figure out what the heck's going on with everything. But basically here is the black part is the anchor. I'm not sure what I want to do with it yet. Basically, the anchor is going to be some sort of wall or something because we got to be able to stop the cars. Everything's gravity fed, so we got to stop the car somehow. So an anchor stops the car. So the start anchor here, I've just got it represented just as a black piece of a track. This is the starting line. This is a yellow piece of track. Now, in reality, what the starting line will look like is it will have some sort of gate here at the end, and that gate will be up until a countdown occurs, and that gate will fall, and whoo, the cars will go off on their tracks. As you can see, I got marbles right now because I haven't done the cars yet. Actually, I have. When I'm doing this recording, which is the 31st of May, in reality, I've already been working on the cars, and you can see that within the car box. I call it. We have the sandbox for this. We have the car box for the cars, but that's no big deal. So anyway, here's the first straight. Let's see if we can get it looking. So there's the first straight. You can see we've got a nice little contour there, starting from the start line at the very top, going all the way down to the bottom of here. And we still got ourselves a little bit of a slope there, as you can tell. So there's the curve for straight number 1. Straight number 2 was complete straight. There was no sloping. There's no curve in it like you have with the Bezier curves here. So it just printed out as a straight. And here is our first 90-degree curve that goes off to the right. And it's got some wicked banking on it, automatically built in. Works pretty good. I'm going to have to do some, once I get the cars on there, I'll have to do some tweaking. You'll even see with the marbles here, some of them will fly off. Here's the third straight. As you can see, it's a nice, gentle little slope down. Here's our 80-degree curve. Oh, 180-degree curve. It goes off to the left and just, all the way down to our next, let's see if I can get this right here, all the way down to our next gentle slope back down to get us down to the finish line. And the finish line is the only one that I've actually have worked on and pretty much got finished the way I wanted to get finished. Just a nice little checkerboard there. It's got a little blue line there, and I put that in there originally to be able to help myself visualize where the finish line is located and to help the graphical program do the ray tracing to figure out who's crossing the finish line first. But I have to admit, I kind of like it in there. I may take it back out, but you know, I may keep it in there. I don't know. I think it looks pretty good. But anyway, so that's the finish line there. Here's another little piece of track, you know, the slow down part or something. Here's the ending anchor, which again, like the starting anchor, is just a simple black piece of track. Eventually, this is going to be some sort of wall to help stop the cars. And then, of course, this is all the green stuff is our ground. So that's basically what the graphics will look like. In our next video, we'll go through some of the simple parts of the graphics on how we actually built this particular screen. But I don't have cars yet, but I do have marbles. You want to see them race? So all we have to do here, I set this thing up. Let's go over to our highlight left again. And within our app.js file, if I go all the way to the top, not all the way to the top. Where is it? I've lost it. There it is right there. The class app default gravity of 0. If I set this to 1, that means it's actually going to run. So once I set this over to 1 and we'll flip over to the screen, then it will automatically save. It'll automatically refresh, and then it will do its thing. So let's change this to 1 and let's watch the marbles race. And I messed that up. Let's just try that again. Let's hit F5 and try that again. There we go. There are the marbles. There they go. Da, 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 da. Off they go. Around the corner. Around the big curve. We've lost a few of them. Getting to their finish line. Boom! There they are. Also, look what I've done here. I've actually given names to all the different marbles. That was in the, let's flip back over to the highlight left. That was in the app section here. I had ChatGPT. Well, actually, I've used GitHub's AI, but I had AI say, hey, can you give me a list of 30 silly marble names? And it gave me a list of 30 silly marble names here. And so I'm just using these names and assigning names to the races. And this is kind of how I was able to figure out how my finish line works. So let's hit F5 again. Let's hit F5 again. There we go. It refreshed. Let's get all the way to the end. Let's watch him come in. Yeah, they should be coming around the corner. There they are. Down to the end. Boom, and off they go. As you can see, the names come up as the marbles cross the finish line. So Smoothie McLap was our winner with Marble Wanderer. Some of these colors don't show very well against the green. Marble Wanderer second, Orb Ituary third, and on and so forth. Marble Madness ended up being in last place, but not really, because we have 32 marbles, and so as you can tell there, 8 of the marbles did not make it. Sir Rolls-a-Lot, my favorite name, did make it. He got number 19. So that's what the track does for us. On our next video, we're going to be taking a look at the basics of how to get the graphics appear up on the screen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel to view more videos. Click on the like button on this video and visit us at TheVirtuoid.com. Also, support us on Patreon, where you can get access to member-only videos. Links are down below. Again, thank you very much for watching, and keep on coding.